Good afternoon. Welcome to the PA AMR conference. My name is Amy and I'll be introducing our next speaker, Eric Oliver. Mr. Oliver is a land reforestation specialist with GFW in Pennsylvania. He previously worked for the PA DEP as a mineral resource program specialist and a mine inspector. He has nearly 30 years of experience in a varied array of mine reclamation practices. He graduated from Clarion University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Earth Science and has received a graduate certificate in GIS from Penn State's World Campus. Mr. Oliver enjoys just about any outdoor activity and is always looking for new places to explore. He resides near the Altoona area and is originally from Clearfield County. Please join me in welcoming Eric.
I'll keep it nice and short and sweet because I got a long drive home, like 2 exits up the interstate, so. Are you ready with the recording and everything? Okay. Thank you, Amy. That was a great introduction. Basically outlined everything. And we're gonna talk about a bunch of different things here, but mainly we're gonna focus on something that Tom Shope talked about in his presentation earlier, which was the FRA, forestry reclamation approach that is promoted by ARRI through the OSM. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to run through, you're going to see, if you were here for his presentation, you're going to see some repeat slides because he had some and I had some, basically the same slide. And then we're going to jump into about 5 or 6 different sites to show you that this does work. We are establishing good, ecologically natural forests on mined land, which we haven't been able to do in a long time. So, talk just brief about the ARRI. It's a broad-based group, and like I said, we're looking throughout Appalachia, not just here in Pennsylvania, but all the way down into northern Alabama. We're looking to reestablish forests on land that has been mined. There's estimates out there that about 1.5 million acres have been lost due to mining in Appalachia. The forest land has been lost. It's been either reclaimed and it hasn't returned because of extenuating circumstances, or land use changes have been submitted and that kind of stuff. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take those forest fragments, bring them back together, make it look like Appalachia should, where you have a lot of this large forest blocks running down the whole entire region. Our goals are to plant more high-value native trees, okay? We focus on hardwoods, but we're finding out that not every single hardwood has to be out there. We don't have to plant it, they'll come. We do focus on a lot of early successional trees too. We want to increase the survival rates and growth rates of the trees. We'll talk about, there's a couple slides in here, we'll talk about that. And then we want to basically put this Band-Aid on, and we want to expedite the natural establishment, the natural succession of these forests, but from a scrub environment to early successional to late successional. Tom talked about this. There's a lot of partners involved. All of the states, like I said, from Pennsylvania to Alabama are involved. All the states that are in the Appalachian region all have somebody that sits on one of the teams that ARRI has, and I'll break that down here in a minute. You saw this slide, but ARRI basically sits at the middle of the hub, and we partner with all these different aspects of that's out there. Everything from state regulatory authorities, OSM, the landowners, academics. We have a lot of academics. We actually have a whole science team that's full of academics. Everything, environmental groups, watershed groups, everything. We could add spokes to these wheels. It seems like it's growing all the time. So there's 2 teams. There's the ARRI core team, which is the boots on the ground, go out, work on projects, work with landowners, get the trees in the ground, and apply the science that the science team does research and pulls data on, and either changes techniques of getting these trees to grow better on the forest land, or they go out afterwards and they monitor what has been done to see if there's changes that we need, what worked, what didn't work. The science team, the core team, there's somebody from at least one person from every state on that. Most states have 2 people on it, and then there's also federal participants and stuff on it. The ARRI science team is made up of all these universities on here. They have 1 or 2 people on it. You also have the American Chestnut Foundation, USGS, Forest Service, American Bird Conservancy, GFW, you know, all these have some type of a representative on the science team. And what they do is they do the research, they have the articles that are called Forestry Reclamation Advisories, which are available on OSM's website. That'll be on the last slide here, if you guys want to jump on there and find it. But it's basically, what do we have, Jeff, now? Like 23 of them, I think we're up to. It's something, you know, we have good papers, good data, good science that's out there about how to reforest mine land. So Tom kind of had this slide in his also, but there's 5 major components to it. The biggest thing is we want to reduce compaction. After SMACRA was signed, there was a lot of emphasis put on putting compaction, make these sites stable, They compacted them up to the very, very top, and the trees have a tough time establishing. They don't have a group median. Basically, we created Walmart parking lots with the compaction, okay? We also have a lot of competition because to go along with this site stability, we wanted to limit the amount of erosion that was going on. So we planted a lot of fast-growing cool season grasses, which aren't very tree-friendly. We also did proper species selection is the next one. We found that some trees didn't grow as well as others. Some of it was because of compaction, whatever, but some trees would grow well. They didn't need the group meeting, but they were not meant to be in Appalachia. We introduced non-native species here that have overtaken Scotch pines, for example. Norway spruces grow really great on mine sites. They're not native to this area. They don't fit into the ecology. Proper tree planting techniques. Our sites are rough. A lot of active industry, a lot of tree planting that has gone on, they utilize a tractor with a Tron plow behind it, like tree planter behind it, that is meant for like farm fields and for nurseries and stuff like that, where there's not a whole lot of rocks, there's not a whole lot of compaction, they work really well. You get them out on a mine site, they don't work as well. So, but they went ahead and continually planted trees. In Pennsylvania, they have to have either 400 trees or 500 trees, or 400 trees or 450 trees, depending on the land use, for bond release, surviving at 5 years. They plant these trees anywhere from 600 to 800 trees per acre, so that they know that 50% of those trees, roughly 50% of those trees are gonna die, and they're still gonna be able to get their bond release. That's wasting money, okay? When you'll see when I put some numbers up here, we're getting survivabilities in the high 80s, 90s, even we've had survivabilities at certain sites where the survivability's been plus over 100%, because once we open it up, native species are moving in and there's trees that are growing that we didn't plant on these sites. And the other thing is like just having the best possible growth meeting, you know, in that 4 feet, 5 feet that we're gonna be doing, have some weathered sandstone, have some organics, have some soil that's involved with it, and just have the best medium available to it. So talking about the growth medium, like I said, 4 feet is what we like. Anything better than that, we love. A little bit of topsoil, a little bit of subsoil, sandstone works really good. Trees love rocks. They love rocks. You know, you people don't say there's no rocks in the forest. Well, I challenge you to go walk on the mountain over here and tell me that there's no rocks up on that mountain, okay? So a little bit of organics. You can see the paste pH is a little bit on the low side. A lot of soil amendments are used in typical reforestation and reclamation practices. That's for the herbaceous plants that we're putting on there. They need those neutral pHs and high pHs so that they can grow. Trees like it a little bit acidic. I've seen trees do very well down into the 4 or 5 range, especially pines and stuff like that. And they low soluble salts, okay? Soluble salts are detrimental to plant establishment. We're not gonna go into soil sciences here. Hopefully you guys understand it. If not, we can talk about it afterwards. So what we want to do is, the biggest thing we run into is compaction, like I said, the creation of these Walmart parking lots. So what we want to do is we want to try to figure out ways to do it. There's several different ways that it can be done. The first thing to do is place the soil loosely to begin with. Don't compact it. Compact the heck out of that site all the way up. But when you get to that last 4 or 5 feet of growth medium, handle it in a special way that you're not continually traveling over with a 250-ton truck with rubber tires just kneading that into the ground. That's where the compaction occurs, okay? And that's where the trees are gonna be trying to do their business. So a lot of places use endums, hummocky piles. You've seen that, you'll see some examples of that. Works really well, works really good. Not real palatable to some landowners because it does leave a really rough surface. But you can strike those off either with an excavator that's not walking on top of the piles. even one pass with the dozer, so you don't travel back and forth across it. I've had dozer operators tell me that they compacted that line so good that you could drive across there with a cup of coffee on the dashboard of your pickup truck and never spill a drop. Well, guess what? They also turned it into that Walmart parking lot by doing that. Traveling that 100,000, 200,000 pound machine back and forth across there. So we have the push-up method, works very well. It's basically for soil that's in place. You can push it up into the hummingbee piles either with a loader, an excavator, a dozer. And the other thing is, and you're gonna see a lot of examples in mine, and this is my favorite one to do because I work a lot on legacy lands. Legacy lands, the dirt and everything's in place. We're not gonna move it again, it's very expensive. So what we do is we rip it, okay? And that's what, a lot of the projects we get towards them, that's what we're gonna be focusing on, a lot of rip projects. So here's some examples. This is up in Lycoming County Fisher Mining. In advance of their dragline pits, they're going around and removing the top strata that has the root balls in it. They're bringing them around and replacing them on their reclaimed areas. And they're doing a wonderful job. The trees that you see growing in there, they haven't planted a single tree. Those are established from the root balls that they're bringing around and they're establishing on this site. The area that is under the FRA on this Fisher Mining site is, they've never planted a single tree on it. They more than meet bond release when it comes time to count for forest land of what they need to do, okay? They have not planted a single tree. We got cost savings. So here's an example. This is a 9-year-old chestnut oak that was growing on a site. You can see average, I don't know this guy, but average probably height between 5 and 6 feet. That tree's probably getting close to 10 feet, 9 feet tall, okay? And you know what's really cool about that in 9 years? It's producing mast already. Okay, so these trees, they're out there, they're becoming part of the ecology. They're not just out there. I can show you trees that I planted as a teenager in the 1980s with my father's reclamation business that are oaks and maples and stuff like that. They've been in the ground for 30 some years now. I can run and jump over top of them and they've never had a single acorn grown on them because of the compaction and the competition that they're dealing with. So it's very cool to see that, okay? Hey, look who we got in this picture. So, and I always mess this up. This is Burger, correct? That's Dr. Burger. Okay, so like it's Zipper or Burger, again, one's mixed up. But this is tree cookies, and Jeff, you can jump in if I'm wrong here. This tree here in the middle is a tree that was a white pine that was taken off of naturally grown forest, not mine. This tree here was taken off of compacted mine land, and this tree here was off of a loosened FRA site, FRA compliance site. And if I'm correct, Jeff, 20 years, all 3 trees are 20 years old?
I thought they were 12.
12?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we could count the rings if we could get them.
Yeah. The big thing is, they're equal aged. And you can see, we're actually outgrowing natural forest by loosening up. These trees want to grow. They have this loose soil, they have an environment where they don't have to compete with grasses and stuff like that, and they grow. They really do. And you'll see examples. So we're going to jump into, I think I have 4 or 5 different sites here that I've worked on here in Pennsylvania. I'm going to give you a little bit of quick stats about the site, you know, what was on the site, and then we're going to look at pictures on it. I have some time ordered pictures on here. So this is in the Michiana State Forest, right on the border of Clearfield County and Elk County. It was an AML reclamation site. It was put back with cool season grasses and no trees. It is now owned by DCNR, and they wanted to get some trees growing on it. So they hired us to come in, and it was 55 acres total. Like it says there, was backfilled in the early 2000s. We worked with Elk County, Clearfield County on getting the ENS plan. And then, you know, you can see what the ENS plan inquired. We cross-ripped it in June of 2018, single shank dozer. I'm going to show you some pictures of that. And we planted it in May. You can see that's not a complete list of species that are involved, but look at the high quality. White pines, aspen, red oak, American chestnut. We actually had disease-resistant American elms that we planted on this site, and a lot of wildlife shrubs. We were doing what DCNR wanted to plant because they're the ones that are managing this site for the forest going down the road. Funding came from PEC, Pennsylvania Environmental Council, from DCNR and DEP to do this project. We had some species we always look at species of concern, so golden-winged warbler was interested. They had Indiana bat, they had a lot of different bat species that were having struggling, and they're on an E&T list. And then there are various game species. They had whitetail, they had elk, they had bear, they had turkey, everything else that they were managing. It was a very huntable area. So this is what it looked like. This is the dozer doing the first pass. The first pass ripping, we always do up and down the slope. And then we finish on the contour, which creates a roughness of slope, and you don't get any ENS runoff of this stuff. Andy and I did a project here, 2 years ago on Altoona Water Authority, 1-to-1 slope. We did this. It sat for 6 months from the time ripping till the time in the trees. Not a single erosion gully happened on it. And there were several bad storms in there. Okay, the water cannot get going where it needs to go. This is what it looks like after the second pass. And you can see coming down that slope, that water can't get started going down there. Every 8 feet, it has a 4 or 5 foot furrow from that ripping shank, so it stops it and then allows it to infiltrate. This is kind of an overview, a drone photo of what we looked at. Because they were managing it for several different species, they wanted to leave some grass plots there for the elk and for whitetail, for hunting, for people to view them and stuff like that. So we didn't rip everything, but you can see as we broke it up, we were going around the hill, this contour cut, we were able to break it up for them. This was a pretty neat project. This was on the active mining side. Coal company was in, they mined a site, they went out of business, they hit bad water. There was limited bonds on it. The DEP, we forfeited the bonds from the bonding company. With the addition of the bad water, we had enough money to either treat the water or reclaim the site. We didn't have both. So we partnered up with the Cambria District Office, and they took care of the water. I took care of the trees for them with a lot of partners involved with this. The private landowner, it was the Kowalczyk family, was the landowner in Broadtop Township, Huntington County. It was about 36 acres. We cross-ripped it in 2009 using a D10 dozer. I'll have some pictures of that. You can see the normal species on there. I'll have some really good pictures of those species in a minute. Again, PEC, SRBC came in on this one to contribute a little bit because of the water impact that we were going to have to the site, and DEP also. Green golden wing warbler, bats, same thing. The one thing that this site did have to it, you'll see the pictures and you'll understand we did biosolids application on this before we planted the trees. Okay, this is what the site looked like. This was 2 years after it was regraded. Nothing was growing on this site. Okay, there was very little organics, a lot of dark black shales. It was very hot. It just would not grow. Okay, we came in and ripped it with a D10 dozer. That's after the first pass, and that's what it looked like after the second pass. We loosened that up. That entire site got broken up. Okay, and we didn't put a whole lot of biosolids on there, but doing that deep ripping, we were able to rip those biosolids down into where the trees could utilize them. Yeah, there was still some left on the top for grasses to grow in and stuff, and you'll see what happened in the next picture. That's 4.5 months after we planted trees. We went 2 years without a single thing growing on this site. 4.5 months later, you can see most of those are locust trees, which take off like crazy on these sites. But look at the herbaceous vegetation that moved in on here. Okay, this is the following. That was 4.5 months later. This is the middle of the summer, so this is about a little over a year after the trees were planted. It's pretty much the same look. Actually, let's go back there. If you can look up here and see that white pine tree that's standing there, that's that white pine tree. So it's basically the same view shed of what you're seeing there. So the trees are doing really good. This is what it looked like in May of 2021. This is 2 years later. In the middle of the summer, you can see the forbs are starting to come in. A lot of the ground. This is a lot of goldenrod and everything else starting to do its thing in May. So in that year, also looking at this is a black cherry tree. Okay, May of 2021. That tree is 2 years old. It hasn't completed its full second growth season. Okay. This is what it looked like in August of 2023 when we were just out there. This is sycamores, white pines, the oaks, the cherries. They're pretty impressive, okay? You can see these trees now are just finishing, in August, would be just finishing up their 4th growing season. These trees are 4 years old. Bond release in Pennsylvania is 5 years. So those trees and that site and that ground, and the other thing is we didn't plant a single seed of grass on the site. And you can see where Michael and I were standing. You can see But the site has brought, the vegetation is growing there. We've got 70% ground cover. This meets bond release in 4 years instead of 5 years. Here's some more examples. You can see the ground cover. Here's a picture, this is a black cherry tree, 4 years old. I have had problems with bears climbing up these trees. These trees are reaching pole size at 4 years. They're actually supporting the weight of a bear, breaking the branches off and wallowing in the ground afterwards. Here's me standing beside a white pine. You count the whorls in that, that's 4 years old. All these trees, there wasn't a single tree on this 4 years ago. And now we've got it looking like this. Pretty successful, isn't it? So, here's a pretty good example, Pinchot State Forest. This was one of the first projects I worked on in 2017. It was on DCNR, they were the sole property owner on this. Early on in the process, Luzerne County, we worked with them. They were really skeptical of ripping up and ENS and stuff like that. So what we ended up doing is we ended up putting a 36-inch silt sock into it. And it added about $40,000 to the cost of the project to put the silt sock in. We'll see that here in a minute. Cross-ripped with a large Komatsu dozer. Planted in, there was 2 areas. We planted in one area in 2017, the other area in 2018. Common suspects for what we used on here, and note that there's American chestnuts, because I'll show you here in a second. The same group of people, and these aren't all-inclusive lists. These are just major contributors that I pulled out for this. And you can see there's 11 acres and 6 acres, how we broke it down. This is what it looked like cross-ripped. It's not that bad, okay? This site was actually planted with cool season grasses the year before, and we came in and ripped it right afterwards. Yeah, it loosened up some rocks, but it also loosened up the soil for the trees. You can see we created vernal pools on the site for the plant uptake and for habitat for wildlife, for salamanders, frogs, toads, that kind of stuff. It creates that, okay? This is an example of the price area that we did in 2017. You can see the 36-inch silt sock here. And you can see this road, make note of this road that goes up and makes a hairpin bend that goes up. This is the day that we planted it. We had a bunch of school people out. And most notably, right below this is Senator Utichak's house. And he came up and actually helped plant trees with me. And it was really neat because the day we were there, it started pouring down rain. Okay? We walked over to here, and you can almost see the water pooled over in here. Water, this compacted area, water was running down like crazy into this ditch. The area that we ripped the entire way along here as we walked, not a single drop of water was making it down off the site. And we put $40,000 worth of silt sock down that meant absolutely nothing. And it was really great. Senator Utichak, he was like, this works. And he became a proponent of us. So here's some more examples. Like I said, make note of that roadway because you're going to see that in the follow-up slide here, okay? This is kind of just a different angle. You can see all the different people who were there, Pennsylvania Environmental Council. I visited in summer of 2022. You can see the roadway that goes up and makes the turn. This drone shot doesn't really do this justice. I mean, it's looking a lot better, but it doesn't do it justice until you get down and you're actually standing at eye level looking at the trees. You can see quaking aspens, you can see birches, you can see white pines, you can see pitch pines. Everything's growing in here. It looks really good. This is like, what, 4 years old. So it's doing really well. Here's some sumac. The funny thing about the sumac is we didn't plant any sumac, but there was a bunch around there. And a bunch of the high school kids went and pulled the staghorns off, and they ran around the site scattering the staghorns while we were there. And now the site is the staghorn. Look at these aspens and these birches. Those are 4 or 5-year-old trees. Okay, here's for example, here's a white pine. Look at the whorls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's a 5-year-old tree growing like that. White birch. We planted those. Those are 4 and 5-year-old trees. Here's an American chestnut. Here's a close-up of the leaf, and here's an ugly guy standing beside it for scale. 4 years old, that American chestnut. There's deer all over this place. They're not eating the leaves. Okay, this showed very little herbivory on it. So there's a good example that we can get these blight-resistant American chestnuts growing on the site. And that makes you feel good whenever you're walking through there. And the milkweed was full of monarch caterpillars as I was walking around the site. It shows that what we're doing is ecologically correct. We're doing the restoration that needs to be done. This is a neat project. This was near Phillipsburg in Center County. I planted this one 3 different years. Most of the sites you're gonna see, the pictures you're gonna see are of the 4-year-old site. When we did it, contacted John Stefanko and got permission to utilize DEP staff from District Mining and from Bureau of Abandoned Mines. We didn't have any paid labor on these sites or whatsoever. We had people from DEP staff come out and plant the trees. We provided them lunch and everybody was happy to plant. So we have two landowners over. We did 12 acres over 3 years. This was an AML backfill that was supposed to go back to grass. But after it was pushed back, the landowner came to Bammer and said, hey, I really think I want trees on there. So he said, can you get trees? So we reached out and we were able to get between the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, Green Forest Works, DEP, I think SRBC had some money in on this, at least some time and everything. But we were able to get the trees. CBF provided all the trees for the site. And like I said, 2019 is when we did the DEP planting. In 2020, I planted it with pros because that was COVID and we couldn't get any volunteer groups together and stuff, and we're still allowed to be in groups. So if the site was ready, it was prepared. I didn't want it to sit another year without vegetation on it. So we got ahead and just put it into our pro contract. And then again, in 2021, we planted the last piece of it, and it was with the Michigan Creek Watershed Association and the Boy Scout troop. So the labor for this pretty much was free, other than that 1 year. And that was the smallest year. Normal suspects here that we're talking about for species. This is what it looked like the day that Bammer got done backfilling everything. I told them that they didn't need to spend a whole lot of time smoothing it off like normally what they do. You know, don't run the dozer over it, don't compact it, don't do anything more. Just get the soil back, get the high wall put away, get the spoil piles taken apart. You can see their brush row at the bottom, and they had super silt fence up on this one. This is what we did right after it. Their dozer is a triple shank ripper. We rip only on contour with the triple shank because the cross ripping with the single shank puts everything on an 8 foot by 8 foot center, and you get good breakups. The distance between the shanks is only about 30 inches on this one, so we would get a complete fracture just going in one direction. But again, you can see the super silt fence, you can see the brush row, you can see the ripping. It's just basically looking like a farmer would do to their field. Farmers plow their fields to get crops to grow. Okay, we're plowing this field, we're just using a larger dozer to get deeper left. Here's pictures, Dean Baker, Marty Hughes. We got some DEP employees. When we came out here, and we walked around with these buckets of trees and we planted everything, okay? It was a great project. This is 2 years later. We did not plant a single blade of grass. We did walk around with a little bit of pollinator mix. In this site, this was kind of late in the year in September. The pollinators were starting to wind off because they had a lot of mid and early blooming in them. This is full of coneflowers, it's full of blackberries. There's just all kinds of different tree-friendly ground cover that's in here. The grasses are growing in. It's all native grasses, being warm season grasses that are being blown in. And you can see the trees are doing very, very well. You know, here's a good example. Here's some more trees. I took a close-up of this redbud. That's my calling card. Every project I've ever worked on, I planted redbud on. So when you see redbuds blooming in the spring, and it's a mine site, you can attribute that to me. That's my favorite tree. But if you look at the leaves on this, it's kind of tough to see in the back of the room. Leaf cutter bees have moved in, right? So we're providing the ecology. We're providing, ecological services that don't usually really end up in mine reclamation. This is what it looked like a couple weeks ago when I was there. While we were walking through this, I was showing this to a landowner that was interested in doing this project. This area in here, there was some turkeys in there that we flushed out. And as we continue to walk along, we actually found a couple of deer that were bedded in there. So we're getting these trees to grow. No tubes, no fences, nothing like that. We're getting these trees to grow. And it's simply the speed of the growth. On mine land, on the compacted soils, these trees grow very slow. And they stay down where the deer can browse on them. These trees are up out of the browse zone. So even if the deer would hit the bottom leaves, they still got enough leaves to photosynthesize and keep themselves alive. Okay? It can be done. Like Tom Stroke was saying in his thing that, we have the tools, we have the knowledge, we have the science, we have the ability to get out there and do this kind of stuff. We can do better reforestation. And right there's examples of what we can tell. So I'll take some questions now. Just make note, if you want to look at the stuff on ARRI, it's listed up there. Use that website if you're looking for FRA.
5 years ago, I had visited Avondale. I worked for DEP in Bammer in Wilkes-Barre. So Avondale is right there
Uh-huh.
across the river. And I was there last month because we used that stop for a different purpose, for a class that I teach for OSM.
Yeah.
And I just can't believe the growth. I mean, 6, 8 feet tall. I remember when a few of our volunteers from our office were out there to help you plant. I did not go that day. I had other important things that day. I wanted to go. I'll go again if it comes up again. But again, the picture doesn't do it justice. Seeing it in person, from what it was, for how many, that's like a 30-year reclamation project. A lot of that has just been black soil. Yes, it's been recontoured, but it's hard to get to grow. To see 8-foot trees there in 4 years, I'm impressed with it.
Yes, it is. Thank you. The testimony's there, Jamie.
Yeah, and I'm impressed with it too. I've seen some of your sites on the ground. I've participated in some of your activities. One question I have, Eric, autumn olive, Russian olive, multiflora rose, do you ever wind up with these?
Actually, we work with them a lot. The 300 and some acre project that I'm working on near Punxsutawney right now is the autumn olive is so thick on it that I can't even walk through it. I have to fly my drone over top of it to look down inside of it. We're in the process of mowing it off and doing some herbicide application, and then we're gonna rip it this fall through the winter, and it's gonna be planted in the spring. Yes, we run into it a lot, you know, we do, some of these projects, that's why we like that project like that last one, because the day that the dozer finished, we started ripping, so we didn't have to deal with any invasives at that point. Round Knob was the same way, the bond forfeiture project, it sat for 2 years, and we didn't have any knotweed growing on that one, and there's knotweed in the area, but it was not growing on that site. But yeah, dealing with the invasives, you know, I don't like herbicide application, but I also know my limitations, you know, that it's warranted in some places to be able to get ahead of them. So yeah, we deal with those common species all the time, and we eradicate them as we can.
Okay, thanks.
Did you see improvements in in comparison with the site where you had the municipal biosolids? And is it really difficult to get permits to do the application of the biosolids?
Well, the biosolids, there's 1 or 2 companies in Pennsylvania that already have a general permit for application. So they have a beneficial use designation. So if you contract with those companies, which we did on this one, they have a 30-day notice to the landowners, 30-day notice to the township, and then we can start applying because they have a general permit that's a statewide general permit that they can do it on. So that is very easy. What was the first question about the difference?
Yeah, did you see improvement differences in
Yes.
growth from one that's applied and one where there's not?
Well, yeah, looking, the last site that I showed you with a lot of sycamores and the red buds and stuff, those trees and those 2 trees were planted at about the same time. And the trees without the biosolids are maybe that big around, they're starting to get caliper sized trees, maybe a little bit bigger. But that black cherry that I showed you on the left here, when I couldn't reach my fingers around the tree, and they're the same age. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of it put on. We saw a lot of that in the first year or 2, and then the nutrients are breaking down. They're not as there, but those roots have gone down in with no compaction. Those roots have gotten down in there. They're down there, and the thing is they're starting to make their own organic material because those trees are so large. The leaves that are falling, now we're starting to get better and better soils. Those leach down through the trees are there for them to use. So, thanks.
Other than the cross ripping, which our program has adopted now, and the ARRI tree lists for species that are desirable, is there any other piece of this puzzle?
Just getting the tree, you got the tree species good, get them in the ground, and those are the big things. And the other thing is, a lot of people don't like to see bare ground sitting for very long. If you do want to plant something on there, you want to see some herbaceous, something that grows, either use warm season grasses or forbs, which are very tree friendly, either alternate growing seasons, or if you do use cool season grasses, mine mix, whatever it is, 10 pounds of the acre. I have another slide show. I should throw these slides in here, but I can show you what 10 pounds of the acre looks. Most mine permits require 40, 50, 60 pound of the acre of mine mix, and 10 pound of the acre will cover that like an AstroTurf cover. Basically 50 pound of the acre, you're putting a bag of mix per acre. A bag of mine mix is probably posting $200 a bag at this point, versus where you can put one bag for every 5 acres, if you do 10 pound of the acre. And the cost savings are there. The active industry, we've had a little bit of trouble getting through to the active industry in Pennsylvania. They've adopted it, they've tried it, but like Tom was saying, they're creatures of habit. They've always done it this way, they like to do it this way, and they just want to keep doing it. But I've taken it, and with our sites, you have reduced compaction grading, cost of the machine going back and forth. Put the soil back, get away from it. Leave it rough. It doesn't need to be like a golf course. You have no soil amendments because lime and fertilizer are there for the herbaceous. The trees don't need those. We're planting all these sites, other than the biosolids application, we have not put any soil amendments to any of these sites on here. We're not mulching these sites, okay? We're not putting any grass seed down. So all of those things can come out of the mix at $3,500, $4,500 an acre for reclamation cost. And the trees, figure $1 a tree. Okay, and we're planting about 700 trees per acre, and we're getting 650 of them to survive. So,
Since you've been doing these projects for 6 years or so now in Pennsylvania, have you noticed that county conservation districts are approving the more natural ENS controls like you showed in the Moshannon State Forest compared to the conventional, more expensive,
Yes.
like the 36-inch
yeah.
filter sock, now that you've shown some success with the ripping and
Probably call it roughness of slope, is what
and
ENS,
that-
the ENS.
so are they adopting that approach to?
Yeah,
Now there's
they're
some
becoming
data.
a lot better. Once we've come into a new county and we've been working on this stuff, and I always engage them, I bring them out on the projects, I let them see what we're gonna do. And some places are just, I'm just not sure. So we go ahead, we do what they wanna do, we do their best management practices, we put some seed down, we put up some silt fence, that kind of stuff. But then they see these projects and they monitor them, like we did the one up on Altoona City Water Authority, 188 acres ripped like this. And Donna from the Blair County Conservation District come out and she says, wow, this is amazing. We just went through 4-inch rainstorms, 3-inch rainstorms, and there's nothing running down this 1-to-1 slope. But right next to it, in an area that we didn't rip because they didn't want to rip it over in that area because some of the substrate wasn't as very good, it was eroded. They came back 3 and 4 times to plant it to get it established. But where we ripped was beautiful, okay? Yeah, in the county conservation districts, once they see it, they're a little skeptical in the beginning because it flies in the face of what normal ENS controls and the permitting process and everything is. But when they see it, they're like, yeah, this works. And the thing is, with these Walmart parking lots, even if they're on a slope, you get all that water, it runs off, it ends up in your ENS ditches, it has a lot of velocity to it and stuff like that. You've got expense trying to take care of that stuff. But if you can take and you can keep that water on the site, it's there for plant uptake. If your site's compacted and it runs off, not only does it take your soil with you, but then 2 days later, it's dry. And the grasses and the trees have trouble growing. What this infiltration is, and these vernal pools and this roughness of slope, they keep the water there, they keep it moist, and the vegetation has a great time growing. So, I see Marty's back there now. Were you back there when I called you out on the slide? So you can see that he actually did some work at one time, so.
What's that?
So, but, is there any other questions? I have some business cards up here, if you guys wanna take them, there's a QR code on the back, you can flip one over and scan it and take it, and not take the card, or you can take the card with you, whatever you wanna do. I'll be around for a while yet, at least another 15 minutes or so. If you guys have any questions, we're right on time, let me know, but thank you.
Thank you.